breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
Florida attorney Steve Causey walks into his office bathroom and is never seen walking out, launching a murder investigation in Tampa Bay that has now led to the arrest of a plastic surgeon. Today, new details revealing more of Causey's connection to the surgeon charged with murder, and in an exclusive here from the friend and colleague who went into that bathroom to make a terrifying discovery. Good afternoon to you folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. You can read more about this story, of course, across all of our platforms on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. I'd like to bring in the reporter who's been leading the way on this story and uncovering a whole lot in just the last few minutes, last couple of hours. 8 on your side investigator Shannon Benkin, who's joining us from our bureau. Shannon, I'm going to try to start here from the beginning with this story to get our audience caught up to speed, because some of the details are still hard for us to wrap our brains around. And I'm sure for investigators, they are still, of course, actively investigating this. But it was on Tuesday, not even a week ago, Florida attorney who's described as just a great guy, here on your screen, folks, Steve Causey, walks into the bathroom at his office complex, and he's never seen coming out, which, of course, sends a lot of friends and loved ones, family members, into a panic because they don't know what happened to him. He goes into the bathroom and vanishes. And then, of course, this goes from a missing persons case to a murder investigation. Good afternoon to you, and perhaps you can pick it up from that point forward.
Yes, so I got into this story on Friday. I was actually covering another case that involved Mr. Causey, Stephen Causey, and he did not show up for court. And so I was looking for him and stumbled across this story that way because we learned that he had disappeared from, as you mentioned, from his law office, from the bathroom. And now, several days later, on Sunday, actually, we heard that there had been an arrest just yesterday. So now we're digesting all of this. And just a couple hours ago, I had an exclusive interview with Jake Blanchard. He is the owner of Blanchard Law. He was the boss of Stephen Causey. He was the best friend of Stephen Causey. And he was the one that made the discovery that what happened in that bathroom, something could have happened, but it took all this time for him to realize, JB, what exactly happened. He was praying that it wasn't the worst, and now it appears, according to police, that Stephen Causey was murdered.
Yeah, and we do have the arrest here of Tomasz Kozlowski, hopefully pronouncing that correct, 44 years old, plastic surgeon in Pinellas County as well. What do we know about the arrest so far in this case, Shannon?
Well, we're just still digesting this. The affidavit detailing that arrest just came out, but I can tell you that this was a plastic surgeon in our area. He had an ongoing court case that involved Mr. Causey, which was the only connection that we've been able to come up with so far. This was an ongoing court case from back in 2019. Mr. Causey Mr. Kozlowski claimed that there was some issues with his former plastic surgery center where he worked. He was suing people that he worked with and worked for. It was a billing issue. So this had been going on for years, and Mr. Causey was the attorney that was handling that. So we know that Kozlowski had been in this law firm several times for depositions. It's a very small law firm. He'd been there several times, and he was a suspect, and then now he has been arrested, and we're just digesting all of these details that police say led them to this man.
Right. So to recap, Stephen Causey, the attorney, is the attorney representing Kozlowski's former place of employment, where, of course, he practiced plastic surgery. So again, back to Tuesday, folks. We're going to try to take you through this as chronologically as possible. On Tuesday, Stephen Causey goes into this bathroom he is never seen coming out. The person who realized he is missing is Jake Blanchard, colleague and close friend, as Shannon just said, a best friend of Stephen Causey, who realized that he was missing. Shannon just interviewed Mr. Blanchard. Let's take a listen to that, and then we'll come back here to explain exactly what happened after Stephen Kazi was discovered to be missing.
And I didn't really have any reason to suspect something like this. So initially, you know, the first reaction was, you know, gosh, is he okay, right? Did he wander off, or did he hit his head or something like that? And then when I couldn't find him, then I started to panic. You don't know, and you just want answers, and you don't know why somebody would hurt somebody as nice as this guy. Nobody. I mean, this is the nicest guy, the sweetest guy. I mean, he wouldn't hurt a fly. And you just all these things start going through your head, and you just wonder, who would do this? Who would be so evil to hurt this sweetheart of a man? You know, you hold out hope, you know, but then when they arrest somebody and they arrest them and charge them with first-degree murder, then sort of that hope just goes away.
That again is Jake Blanchard, who was at the law firm and went into the bathroom, and the discovery inside the bathroom, as we are now learning, Shannon, it was a terrifying discovery, not just something that Mr. Blanchard saw, but something that he smelled as well.
That's right. He tells me that he knew that Mr. Kazi went to the bathroom. He was on the phone, he was doing his own thing, and then he realized that he hadn't come back, and it had been quite some time. So there was supposed to be a hearing. It was actually in this particular case that we referenced earlier that Kozlowski was the plaintiff in. There was a hearing. It was supposed to happen at 10:30, so he wondered, well, maybe he went to the hearing. Maybe that's why he didn't come back to his desk. But then he saw his keys, his phone, his wallet, so it appeared that he did not leave. So he went to look for him, and he went into the bathroom, and he tells me he saw blood splatter on the wall, and it looked as if it had been someone had tried to wipe it away, but it smeared the paint, and he smelled bleach. So he said at that point he started to worry, but he didn't see a tremendous amount of blood. He didn't know what happened. He told me he wondered if perhaps Mr. Kazi had hit his head, if something had happened, he had wandered away. His mind is racing, he's trying to figure out what happened, but he called police right away. Then Mr. Blanchard tells me that when police arrived and they brought forensic and they turned on the light, the blue light, the room just lit up with blood splatter, and that's when he knew that something horrific had happened in that bathroom.
And the body of, right there on the center of your screen here, Stephen Kazi, everybody, has not yet been found, as this continues to be an ongoing active investigation with the Largo Police Department. So as we would understand, as we, of course, were doing digging and trying to do everything that we can it's a missing persons case. So what we're doing here at WFLA is trying to get the word out, spread as much word as possible that Stephen Kazi, Florida attorney, was missing, and he had been reported missing on Tuesday. But we know that at some point this went from missing persons investigation to potential murder investigation. We know that there was a search warrant. We're going to throw up some video here from Eagle 8 HD. This is, I'll try to bring this up here in just a second, but Eagle 8 HD flew over the home of Tomasz Kozlowski, Shannon. We know now that investigators executed a search warrant at this home. What do we know exactly about that?
Well, we know from the affidavit, I'm still digging through it, that they discovered a lot of blood in the car, in the truck that they say Mr. Kozlowski was driving. And the affidavit goes into detail about Mr. Kozlowski showing up on surveillance video at that office early morning before Mr. Kazi arrived to work. So at a little after 8 o'clock, I believe, he shows up on the video. According to the affidavit, police say that he walked into the business wearing gloves, and they didn't see him back on the video for several hours later. The video shows Mr. Kazi arriving to work. It never showed Mr. Kazi leave that building. So we know that he was driving, Mr. Kozlowski was driving a Toyota Tundra, according to this affidavit. and that there was an image showing him leaving, carrying some sort of tote, tugging along a tote, and that there was a red bag or blanket in a cart that appeared to contain what resembles, I'm reading from the affidavit now, a human body located in the bed of the truck. This is what the police determined this looked like. So they did execute that search warrant. When they got there to that house, this affidavit goes into great detail that they used forensic processing, that they found blood located in the trunk bed, on the driver's side headrest, the driver's side floor bed, as well as the garage floor. So then they were able to use that evidence to do a traffic stop. Where they located Mr. Kasowski. I think they had the traffic stop on Saturday, and then they arrested him, and he was processed into the Pinellas County Jail on Sunday at about 4:15 in the morning.
So we already have some folks, and hello to people joining us on Facebook Live, YouTube Live here on WFLA Now. 8 on your side, investigator Shannon Benkin, who's been reporting on this story since Friday and still uncovering new details, and just conducted an exclusive interview, is joining us here live from the Bureau. We're here in the Stream Center. So Shannon, this arrest affidavit fills us in on a lot more with what was used to arrest Thomas Kasowski. As a reminder, folks, as we do here live on stream all the time, we remind folks, innocent until proven guilty. This is a probable cause affidavit. The arraignment is actually happening now, if it hasn't already finished. We're waiting on video to come out of the arraignment for, again, Thomas Kasowski, arrested and charged with first-degree murder in this case. So let's go over this, because I want to make sure that we have this right here, Shannon, because they say that when officers arrived, they discovered that the only unsecured entrance to the building was the main lobby doors, and then that they reviewed surveillance video that showed a gray Tundra arrived at the office building at around 8:32 in the morning. And then at 8:34, an unidentified white male is seen entering the building wearing gloves, carrying a large box, wearing a large backpack, and shortly after the victim arrives. But we don't know. It says an unidentified white male. I don't know if in this arrest affidavit if they ever say if that is the defendant in this case, Mr. Kasowski. Is that correct?
That is correct. As I see it, they never say that it is him, but at the very end of the affidavit, it says, due to the large quantity of blood located at the crime scene, the defendant's home and vehicle, along with the fact that the subject removed a container large enough to conceal a human body, and the victim was never seen exiting the business on surveillance, it is believed, this is reading again from the affidavit, it is believed that the victim is deceased and that the defendant intentionally, by a premeditated design, caused his death. That's from the affidavit.
Wow. So, okay, so here's another thing that is just absolutely something that was not on our radar, but we're getting this. This is a new detail from the arrest affidavit. And so let's go through this chronologically one more time. We've got another 5 or so minutes with Shannon. We're also going to be bringing on 8 on your side investigator Masa Saidi as well. Shannon is, of course, preparing this interview and all the latest details for our newscast tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. And, of course, you can also find her reporting on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. But let's get back here to the arrest affidavit. 8:32, the gray Toyota Tundra arrives at the building. This is, again, the law office complex where Stephen Kazi works. 8:34, an unidentified white male is seen entering the building wearing gloves, carrying a large box and wearing a large backpack. Shortly after, victim arrives at the building at 8:37 wearing a red sweater. And then now we're going to fast forward about 2 hours in time. 10:22, the subject, who has a similar build to the first subject, wearing the same backpack, exits the building and appears to have changed clothing. So a 2-hour window, if you will, roughly 2-hour window exists from when the alleged murderer is showing up, the victim, Stephen Kazi, is showing up, and then a person who now emerges out of the bathroom and out of the building through those main lobby doors. And then I'll read here, he is seen pulling behind him a large cart that appears to be heavy and have a red bag or blanket. Based on how this is being read to us and how this is being described, is that if Stephen Kazi, of course, if he left that bathroom, he's doing so in that cart, correct, Shannon?
That is unfortunately the way this reads. And, you know, the timeline here is very interesting because Mr. Blanchard tells me it was about 9:50 in the morning when Mr. Causey got up to go to the bathroom. He had a teleconference hearing in the case involving Mr. Causey, and that was supposed to take place at 10:30. That hearing did take place. And you mentioned at 10:22, that is when this unidentified person wearing the same, wearing different clothing, but at the same backpack leaves that building at 10:22. Well, at 10:30, that hearing began,
that's absolutely wild. I
was there.
I want to make sure that our audience is following along here. I don't want to cut you off, Shan. I want to make sure our audience is following along. This is a 10:30 court hearing for the case between, of course, the clients of Causey and the man here in the center of your screen, Kozlowski. So 10:30 is a court hearing, and at that time, we don't know, given, of course, what has transpired, we don't know if Kozlowski is alive or dead, but this could all be going on as far as the cart being wheeled out of the bathroom. This could all be going on as this 10:30 telephone court hearing is taking place.
Yes, that is what you are left to believe, because this 10:30 court hearing did take place, and Mr. Kozlowski was on the phone for that hearing. Obviously, Mr. Causey was not on the phone for that hearing. So
forensics processes the scene, of course. And one of the big things, of course, is going to be DNA evidence. And one thing that we don't know in this case, but it's just too early for there to be any DNA results. There's no mention of any DNA. We know that
the only DNA that did mention, JB, is it does mention that there was a fingerprint from Mr. Kozlowski that was found in it calls it the breaker room. It says breaker room in the affidavit. I believe maybe it means break room, but somewhere in that law office where it says it's a room that's traditionally cut off from the public, they claim that there was a fingerprint from Mr. Kozlowski.
Okay. And so let's fast forward here. To the arrest. On March 25th, 2023, the defendant responds back to Pinellas County, stopped by Tarpon Springs Police Department. Search warrant was served on the Toyota Corolla, and during the course of the search, a ballistic vest was found in the trunk of the vehicle with a substantial amount of blood located on it. Red fibers were also located on the ballistic vest, as well as white fibers. A bag containing masks, a taser, brass knuckles, duct tape, and intravenous sedatives, with syringes found on the passenger floorboard of the vehicle, and that sedative was a paralyzing agent. We're starting to get a better picture here of what Stephen Causey's last moments were like, and of course, so much more investigating has to be done, Shannon. But it's pointing to a very evil act that occurred inside that bathroom.
It is, unfortunately. And, when I spoke with Mr. Blanchard, he told me that they had been holding out hope. Obviously he's been in constant contact with the police department, but they don't say everything that they have. And for him to read these words and to hear what the police say that they found is a sombering feeling, because until, like you mentioned, there's no body. They haven't found a body. So they're still holding out hope. Even now, Mr. Blanchard still has a tiny little bit of hope that maybe his friend will be found. But when you read this, the hope just evaporates, he says.
If now look, we have all of these notes from the probable cause affidavit, and we have, of course, there being, a large amount of blood, the smell of bleach, and something being rolled out, something heavy being rolled out of the bathroom inside that cart. As it stands right now, we have a first-degree murder charge. I know that they are holding on to hope. A body has not been discovered. Is there any hope whatsoever, Shannon, that this is a hostage situation, that Stephen Causey was taken out of there after a violent exchange that caused there to be blood? Is there any chance that they're holding out on hope, so I'm just trying to paint a picture in my own mind as to any way that Stephen Causey could be alive.
Those are the types of scenarios that Mr. Blanchard, his boss, his best friend, told me, and he said that he's been in constant contact with Mr. Causey's husband. Those are the things that they're hoping, but again, as you read this and as they're digesting these new details and learning about the blood that was found, they're losing hope, especially because the police are calling this a first-degree murder case, and it's unusual. I've covered a lot of these types of stories. It's unusual that you have a first-degree murder charge without a body, and that is, the people involved in this case. Mr. Blanchard, he's an attorney. He knows that. So when he's hearing that, it's starting to make it, a much more difficult case for him. But they are still hoping. They still have a little bit of hope that maybe there's something we don't know yet, but they're losing it.
Yeah, it's an extremely difficult time for. As I understand it, we have had some contact with Mr. Causey's husband, and we're hopeful to hear. But as of course, dealing with just an unimaginable tragedy right now is the family of Stephen Causey, who's described by Blanchard as being just the nice guy. I mean, a guy that you would never imagine that something like this could happen to, an act of evil. Happening to Mr. Causey. Steve, Shannon, I know that you have to go. You have to get ready for our newscast tonight. Want to give you an opportunity. Anything else before we let you go? We have another 8 on Your Side investigator, Masa Saides, who's standing by to join us. But Shannon, what are you going to be working on? What's coming up tonight on WFLA News Channel 8, and anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, one thing I would like to add is Mr. Blanchard tells me that he just wants to get the word out of, as you mentioned, what a kind soul Mr. Causey was and what a professional he was. He was great at his job, I'm told. He was funny. Mr. Blanchard tells me that there wasn't hardly a day that went by that they didn't laugh in the office. This was a two-man operation. There were 2 attorneys that worked in this office with a paralegal. So, they had, a fun time in the office. They did work. They did bankruptcy work. They did some commercial litigation, but he said they tried to have a lot of fun with that. So coming up at 5, my story at 5 will focus. You'll hear more from Mr. Blanchard. It's going to focus on the life of Mr. Causey, who he was, and what it was like for Mr. Blanchard to walk in that bathroom and what he saw. And then coming up at 6, we're going to look a little bit deeper into the lawsuit that tied these 2 men together and how they met in the first place and what happened with that lawsuit, because that's the only connection to these 2 men. And so you're going to hear Mr. Blanchard describe that relationship and the status of that lawsuit. Again, that was supposed to have a hearing on that day, on that Tuesday, and there's actually supposed to be another hearing tomorrow.
Shannon Bankin doing some just incredible work on the story. Shannon, a huge thank you to you. Before we let you go, last question. Do we know anything about motive? Why Thomas Kozlowski, as it's been alleged, as he's been accused of first-degree murder, why he would want to do harm to Stephen Causey?
The police have not released anything about a motive. We don't know what conversations they've had, if any, yet with him. They haven't released anything. The only thing that we know is that there's this ongoing lawsuit, and it's a lawsuit where, again, he's suing, Mr. Kozlowski is suing his former employer, and he claims in that lawsuit that there was some billing errors. He claims billing malpractice, and that he was owed tens of thousands of dollars. This was back in like 2019, I believe, when this lawsuit was filed, and he had worked there for 3 years prior to that. And he says that this billing person had bad billing practices, cost him money, and resulted in a patient being very upset. And this patient wrote bad Google reviews, and it was very difficult for him to get past those Google reviews. And so he blamed that entire situation with tanking his career and keeping him from, moving up in his career like he would have without that. So we know that the case was about that, but the complaint lists $36,000 in damages back when he filed this complaint. So we're talking about $36,000 at least in the beginning. But we know that this was something that he cared a lot about. He felt like that his career was tarnished. And Mr. Causey was the attorney representing the defendants in that case, 3 of the defendants. One other attorney represented another defendant.
Shannon Bankin, you'll see, of course, more on that section of the story tonight in our newscast on WFLA, and then, of course, later on WFLA.com. Shannon, thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Shannon Bankin, everybody. Give her a follow, of course, on social media and the very latest on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. The next investigator we're bringing in, standing by on Zoom, 8 on your side, investigator Masa Saidi. Masa is joining us. And Masa, you have a connection to this story that I'd like to just start with from the very beginning. So I'll let you kind of jump in here after hearing from Shannon. You've been following this story very closely as well. And you might be muted, Masa. All right, can you hear? It's working on your end, Masa? Oh, yeah, it still says that you're muted. We'll let you figure it out. Folks, as we prepare to hear from Masa, there's a section of this. I want to continue reading that one section that I had there. And again, we're going back to this past Tuesday when Stephen Kazi went into the bathroom and never came out. And a person walked out of the bathroom, walked out of the front doors of this building, rolling this large or pulling behind him a large cart. Now, it's described here in the probable cause affidavit that the person was pulling behind him a large cart that appears to be heavy and have a red bag or blanket. It should be noted that the subject struggled with the weight of the cart while transporting it to a Toyota Tundra. So Masa is going to try to hop back onto the Zoom call, and hopefully we'll have more luck there. The victim missed a telephone court hearing that was supposed to be held, and that actual hearing was from 1028 to 1104. And then after 1104, and it says here specifically at 1105, the subject, who again had the cart at the law office complex, is seen repositioning the cart by the Tundra and later seen struggling to get the heavy cart into the bed of the truck on surveillance. So this telephone court hearing is happening while the transport of whatever was in that red bag, what is feared to be Stephen Kazi in that heavy cart, while the transportation of that cart is going from the front door of the office complex to the pickup truck. Let's see if we now have Masa Saidi joining us. We'll try here again. Hopefully the magic of Zoom cooperates. And I think that, all right, we'll try there again with
I'm right
Masa.
here.
Okay, Masa.
I'm here.
Yin?
Can you hear me?
I do. We can hear you fine. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm joining you from Brooklyn. I've been out of the office a couple of days for some pre-planned time off. It's good to join you, but obviously under just like the most horrific circumstances here today, JB. As you were starting to mention, Stephen and I went to high school together, and I just read that affidavit. Wow. Very, very difficult.
Let's just start with Stephen and you going to high school with him. You are a former prosecutor. He's an attorney down here in this area. Where did you go to high school together, and how well was he a friend, an acquaintance, or did you just kind of know of him? Were you guys in the same grade? All those details.
Stephen and I went to Loudoun County High School. It's in Leesburg, Virginia, and it's not like a tremendously big high school. And you know, we all knew each other. We all loved each other. I was into art, drawing, and painting, and Stephen was a theater kid. My memory of Stephen is just someone brilliant. He liked to read, a little quirky, funny, kind, not aggressive in any way, not someone that would be polarizing. And to just like read that affidavit, it's very difficult. But I will tell you, when I came to the office and, you know, we found out that he was missing, I did a post on Facebook. And so many people had such wonderful things to say about him, even though we hadn't like talked to him in so many years. So we graduated in 1999, as I said. But yeah, people just like really trying to honor his life right now.
Yeah, Masa.
You know what?
Yeah, and we heard there from Jake, who one of his closest friends, if not his closest friend and colleague of his at the law firm, who described him as just the nicest guy, and
Absolutely.
and they're holding out hope.
Mhm.
Any shred of hope that they have left, they're going to hold on to it until they, of course, if the investigation does yield what they are looking for as far as where Stephen Causey is and what happened to him
Right.
after he went into this bathroom. But it's still extraordinary to me that we're talking about a needle in a haystack type of coincidence, that
I
you
know.
being
I
an
couldn't
800,
believe it.
yeah,
You know, I came in to the office and it said Stephen Causey missing. And I think it was either in 2012 or 2015. Steve and I are friends on Facebook. So thank you for giving me a second to recover, JB. I appreciate that. Steve and I were friends on Facebook, and I went to law school. I was a prosecutor, as you mentioned. And, Stephen worked in theater. Stephen worked on Broadway. And at some point, Stephen decided that he wanted to go to law school. And he had just asked me a few questions, via inbox messaging me. And when I came to my office, and I knew he was in Florida, a lot of my friends from Loudoun County High School have relocated to Florida and in the Tampa Bay area. And, I haven't seen Stephen in 20 years, but, he would comment on my stuff here and there. But if I can just finish the point that I was trying to make
Sure.
earlier when
Yeah.
I kind of lost control, was that, he's such a wonderful person that, like, the second I posted about him on my Facebook, everybody from high school started praying. Everybody was like leaving messages and sending me messages and trying to find out, like, is he okay? Sending me private messages. This morning, I talked with one young woman who did theater with Stephen, and she said she was in her bed at 6 p.m. and it was like 9:30. We talked this morning, or 10, and she hadn't got out of bed yet. Just so deeply impacted by this, and just a little shaken up, but because what I just read is like the stuff of nightmares. And it's like, nobody deserves this ever in the world. Like, this shouldn't happen to anybody, but to think it happened to poor little Stephen, that was just like kind, living his life. He's like supposed to have a court hearing. This is according to the affidavit. Stephen is supposed to have a court hearing, and he's not like a criminal. He's not representing the mafia. He's not in this like crazy, dangerous line of work, working with cartels where this danger, this is a theater kid who went into law school and was happily married to his beautiful husband, living in Florida, a great, great human being. And, he's supposed to have this court hearing, online at 10:30 in the morning. And according to that affidavit I just read, and I couldn't believe it. I'm just trying to like wrap my head around just the evil. Of course, the defendant is innocent until proven guilty, but just the evil that is alleged and this affidavit, it's just alarming. Some of the things that made me like lose my composure, the fact that like there was a paralyzing agent, that there was a syringe, that this person enters at what I think was like 8:34 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
3 minutes
I'm
later,
reading it here,
yeah, 3 minutes later, Stephen is showing up to work. Stephen is sitting at his desk. He's playing some music. He's writing an email. He goes to the bathroom. And, one of the things we talked about is we just prayed. Obviously, the family's holding out hope. We just hope that if what police allege is true, we just hope that, he wasn't aware of it, I guess, for lack of a better way, because it's like a nightmare. It's police allege that he was brutally, somehow with an unknown weapon,
right,
killed, to where there was a lot of blood, and that he was placed into, I believe they said, a cart and carried outside, and just, they alleged that this guy actually showed up to the hearing after he had allegedly, again, citing the paperwork,
by phone, calling in essence.
Was it video, JB, or was it a call? Was it
telephonic?
Was it?
So
okay.
It could have been.
So there's no video.
That can be a word used to describe. I mean, to me, telephone is you're phoning in, but that could look in today's era. That could also be a Zoom call, as you know, Masha.
I thought it was a Zoom, and one of the things that I'm curious at is to just see or hear what was said, because they allege, again, this is according to a document that has been filed by authorities who have arrested the man on your screen and charged him with first-degree murder. They allege that he ended his life brutally, that he put him in the back of the truck, and that then he got on a Zoom. I mean, it's like, I can't wrap my head around it. It's stunning. And they think he entered and exited through that to the lobby, which was unsecure, and there's surveillance video. And you just wonder, like, some of the questions I haven't been to the scene, I've been out of town, but the bathroom it was a public bathroom in the building. So I guess their office, it's right there. That's the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
You just wonder, like, I mean, it sounds like he's been charged with premeditated murder, and they made it seem like that he went in, he waited in the bathroom. Like, the thought that it would take, if these allegations are true, and again, they have not been proven in court, this is just according to the documents that have been filed, but it's alleged that he went in, he was like waiting for him, and just took him by surprise, and something awful happened. And some of the evidence they have is, they said the defendant's fingerprint was found in the breaker room. They said that when they stopped his car, this all allegedly happened on Tuesday the 21st. Tomorrow will be exactly 1 week. But they said they found blood in the car, the garage.
Yeah, I want to read the final paragraph here, Masa, if I may. And it says, due to the large quantity of blood located at the crime scene, the defendant's home, and in the vehicle, along with the fact that the subject removed a container large enough to conceal a human body, and the victim was never seen exiting the business on surveillance, it is believed that the victim is deceased, and that the defendant intentionally, by a premeditated design, caused his death.
Yeah. And I was looking at the time frame. Stephen entered at 8:37. The guy left at 10:22. So these are just questions that people that love, is you just wonder, like, what happened exactly, and we pray. Shannon said that they're holding out hope that Stephen's boss and friend, and so we pray for that as well.
So let's remind our audience that we're here live interactively. We're going to start to take we were taking #HeyShannon, but of course there is just so much to review on this story. We're now going to start to take #HeyJB and #HeyMasa questions and comments for the next 10 or so minutes. Big thank you to our moderators on YouTube for joining in, putting in some resources in our comment section. If you have any questions about this story, use one of the hashtags, and we'll try to animate your questions on screen or read them out on screen. But I'm trying to figure out if we have heard anything on the arraignment. The arraignment was set for 1:30 today, Masa, and I'm going to look here in my inbox to see if there's been any updates.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything?
I haven't. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I was reading to a classroom before I hopped on here.
Yeah, so nothing yet as far as the arraignment, and we don't know what section of the hour, and sometimes arraignments can be done sequentially, so we don't know exactly when in the 1:30 hour or so when the arraignment was scheduled to take place. We're going to have hopefully some video. We've requested the booking video and the arraignment video, and we hope to have video again of the alleged in this case, Tomasz Kasowski, 44-year-old plastic surgeon, who, again, let's just quickly go over, if we may, what we know about the person arrested in this case. We'll bring up his mugshot here on your screen. So this is, again, 44-year-old Florida plastic surgeon Tomasz Kasowski. And as it's been described to us, he, years ago, sued his former place of business, his former...
2019.
I'm sorry, 2019?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sued his former workplace. And in the lawsuit, of course, when his former place of business, when the plastic surgery business hired a defense attorney, they hired the law firm of Steve and Causey. And Causey was, as been told to Shannon, Causey was the lead attorney on that case. So that is the main connection. But what goes on between the two, and what is alleged to have been the motive in this case, is something that we're still working out and still trying to figure out. But that is the primary connection, Masa, as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, if this is true, again, he's presumed innocent, but it sounds like that detectives are fairly confident that they have apprehended the right person based upon the fact that of the vehicle, the blood in the vehicle, his fingerprint, some other forensic evidence that they say was recovered at the scene. And at this point, we don't know. It's like hard to wrap your head around that a plastic surgeon files a lawsuit, and then this happens to one of the attorneys. I mean, it's like you wonder. Yeah, we have no idea, but this is the type of thing that obviously is the stuff of nightmares. Paralyzing agents, brass knuckles, masks, bodies and trunks. I mean, it's like nothing. You think about Stephen's mom, Lois Kazi. I've been talking with her on Facebook, obviously being very respectful, giving the family time and space, because obviously it's unspeakable what's alleged that has happened, but you just wonder how his mom is feeling. If people that hadn't seen Stephen in 20 years are so impacted, you just wonder what kind of nightmare his husband, Michael, and his mom, Lois, are dealing with right now. But, we don't know anything about a motive. We might not know for a while, but clearly this is targeted. Clearly this is personal. If what police are saying is true, JB.
Yeah, and premeditated, if what police are saying are true. So I want to pick things up, and P. Anna in our comment section has a great question that we're going to bring in here in just a moment, but I want to pick things up because this is a really important section that I want to emphasize a bit more. We know that this Toyota Tundra was at the law office complex, and that is the primary vehicle that was used by the alleged murderer in this case. And the Toyota Tundra, this is later on, I'm going to read this in the probable cause affidavit, folks.
Yeah,
the Toyota Tundra travels to the defendant's home in Tarpon Springs, passing a flock camera at 11:51 hours. So a few hours later, with an image of a red bag or blanket in a cart that appeared to contain what resembles a human body in the bed of the truck. The Tundra then arrives at the defendant's residence at 11:58 hours. So around noon, the Tundra gets to Kosowski's home. Then the search warrant is executed. But I want to bring up this question here from P. Anna, because she says, or he says, #KJB, any word on what he was doing in Miami after he was caught on surveillance? And this is a really excellent question, because the final line of page 1 of the arrest affidavit reads as follows. The defendant's red Toyota Corolla was seen leaving the area of his home on that Tuesday at 16:58 hours. So that's 16:58. That is 4:58, and later hit on tag readers in Miami, Florida. Now, it does not say when the Corolla was seen in Miami, Florida, but that, of course, would be important, because if the Toyota Corolla is seen here in the Tampa Bay area in Tarpon Springs and then is later hit on Miami, why? So what is being alleged here is that the defendant, Kosowski, then drove left town, got in a Toyota Corolla and left his home around 5 o'clock on that Tuesday, the day that Kazi was last seen, and then went to Miami, Florida.
Yeah. What I can tell you is, I was working on this story when, like, around 9 o'clock yesterday is when I saw that an arrest was made. One of my friends sent it to me. And when we were trying to confirm what had happened, I was working with our digital team. One of the people behind the scenes, Dylan Abad, very talented young man. He was like writing the web article, and he was, I was not near a computer. He was sending me information about the suspect that you see on your screen. And Dylan said that he had some sort of he was looking at the Department of Health website. There was some sort of a business address associated in Miami. So I wonder if maybe he was traveling there. Perhaps maybe he was working. I'm not sure. I'd have to look deeper into that. But when you bring up Miami, and I did read that, and I had a lot of questions about it as you were speaking, I just remembered what Dylan had sent me about the suspect having an operation at some point in Miami.
So that provides us with some context. So appreciate that. We'll take some more hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyMasa questions and comments. Again, the whole point of this is to be able to answer questions. We know that people out there can get very invested in the stories that we cover.
Absolutely.
And so we want to do our very best to address questions, comments as they come in, and the hashtags that we have on your screen on those yellow stripes. That is a vessel, folks, for you to communicate directly with us as we are live. We on Facebook Live. There was a comment, and I'd like to bring it up, and I'm scrolling up here. I had it.
Take your time.
Yeah, Mia wanted to know if we're covering Nashville. Of course, we are covering Nashville. We've got details on WFLA.com. I will probably be moving over to that next. Again, the school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm trying to find another comment that I seem to have lost. And apologies to our Facebook Live commenter who had a very long comment,
so much.
specifically addressing something that you had said. But we'll go here to Mia in the meantime, because Mia,
I can. Do you want me to talk about the facts while you look for that, or you're okay?
Okay. Were there any connections with the victim and the alleged perp? So the connection is this lawsuit, as we understand it, Masa.
Yeah, that's right. So the connection, according to documents, if you put the defendant's name into the Pinellas County Clerk Court records, and if you put in all cases, not just criminal, because obviously criminal, now he's facing first-degree murder, but if you put in all cases, a civil case comes up where the defendant filed a suit. He's a plaintiff in a 2019 suit. And my understanding is that it wasn't just that Jake's law firm, it was Stephen specifically that was assigned to that case from some of the reporting that Shannon has gotten. She's in touch with Stephen's boss. So I think that's the connection that we know of right now of how these two people collided, how they, cross paths with each other.
I cannot find that one comment. I do see some comments about Kozlowski that people that might have done work with him. One thing that I've been trying to find out, and maybe you have, Masa, or I didn't get a chance to ask this to Shannon while she was on stream, but what kind of plastic surgery work Tomasz Kozlowski does? I mean, there's different focuses, different specialties when it comes to the world of plastic surgery. And I don't know if we know exactly what he really focused in on.
Yeah, that's something that certainly we can look into that and get back with specifically, what type of plastic surgery, because we know there's reconstructive surgery where you help people if they were involved in a horrific accident. There's, doing nose jobs for people or whatever it may be. There's all sorts of different. But I will tell you, one of the really surprising things is somebody, that like a plastic surgeon would do something so violent. I guess anybody can do anything, but it was surprising. A doctor, you take an oath to not harm anyone, and they're alleging some horrific things right now.
Yeah, and again, just what was found inside the bag that was uncovered when they executed the search warrant. Let me show everybody the video again. We'll show everybody the Tarpon Springs home. This was Eagle 8 HD. I believe it was photojournalist Jim Hockett, who, of course, Masa knows well, works with Jim all the time.
My partner.
Yep, your partner. Shot this video showing the house. And so here is the house of...
That's the plastic surgeon's house?
Correct. Tomasz Kozlowski's house, where the search warrant was executed. And this is where they found... hold on. I'll just read it exactly from the probable cause affidavit.
Wow, that's a mansion, JB.
It's a large home.
It's a mansion, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a large house. And this is, again, going back to the search warrant being executed on Saturday, where it says the defendant responded back to Pinellas County and then was stopped by the Tarpon Springs Police Department. A search warrant was served on the Corolla. During the course of the search, a ballistic vest was found in the trunk of the vehicle with a substantial amount of blood located on it. Red fibers were also located on the ballistic vest, as well as white fibers, a bag containing masks, taser, brass knuckles, duct tape, and intravenous sedatives, including a paralyzing agent, Suliclin, I can't pronounce it, with syringes was found on the passenger floorboard of the vehicle. So that's actually the search warrant being conducted on the Corolla. But then they went to the home and found a large quantity of blood at the crime scene, the home, and in the vehicle. But you know what's interesting, Masa, is that they are still looking for Stephen Causey's body. And after doing a thorough search of the crime scene, of the defendant's home, and the defendant's vehicle, they still don't have the remains of Stephen Causey, of course, provided that he has lost his life. So that is really, I would imagine, priority number one right now for investigators. Try to piece together the timeline and figure out exactly where vehicles went to and whether or not they can locate the remains of Stephen Causey going forward.
That's exactly right, JB. As you always so eloquently point out, what is now the focus of the investigation. And, you know, there's cameras everywhere. There was a camera right outside of that main entrance to Stephen's building. You know, investigators can quite literally just follow his path and looking for cameras. And you wonder, like, you know, obviously you pray that the prayers of his family is true and that, you know, Stephen is somehow alive somewhere. But I know it's going to be very important for the case and obviously for this family to begin the mourning process to recover Stephen. And this day and age, you just wonder, like, I just can't wrap my head around that this all happened in a public bathroom in a law office in Largo.
Going into
like
that
how,
bathroom,
like,
and
is it secluded? Like, who's there at 9:30? Like, you know what I'm saying? I just don't understand. This is a very, do you know the bathroom? Is it like multiple stalls, or is it one where you go in and you lock the door? Did Shannon say?
She did not say, and I don't have the answer to that. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Because the layout
I'm just curious if there are multiple stalls. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, we had the video here. Let me see if I can bring up the video again. Because
the video looked like one.
It's a men's room. It's a men's room, so it's not as if Shannon can walk into it legally. It wouldn't be the first time that a reporter had gone into a bathroom that they're not supposed to go to. But of course, we're doing.
Yeah, I don't think that breaks the law generally, as long as it's not an active crime scene.
Right, and so we're of course extremely respectful to the business, what they are dealing with at that law office complex, and so. Being very sensitive to that. But I want to get to Christian's comment on screen. Kristen saying, #KJB, #KMasa, do we know where they're searching for the body? Perhaps in some water. They're going to try to do everything they can to retrace exactly where Kozlowski was in all of these hours. But the timeline is really spanning really from Tuesday through till Saturday when they executed the search warrant. So they have to fill in a big section of that timeline to figure out exactly where he was and really where the tundra went, because that will help them get an idea. But we don't know where they're searching and where they have been searching. That's something we're going to ask, of course.
Yeah, and I know that this investigation started at Tuesday in the morning when, you know, the person, somebody, Stephen's coworker, I don't know if it was Jake or who it was, like, noticed that Stephen never came back, that Stephen's wallet, that his keys, that his phone was just left at his office. Music was playing, an email draft was up, and they went to go look. That's when they saw, you know, the blood in Stephen's car out there. So the investigation started on Tuesday morning. We in the media, we had no idea about, you know, any of this until I believe it was Friday. Friday is when we found out, and I'm getting all my days confused now. I'm not sure when. The arrest was Sunday at 4 a.m. That's right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So I don't imagine that investigators are going to tell us any of that information where they're looking. But you just, you know, it seems like they've done a very fine job thus far. I mean, they were able to make an arrest and they processed the scene. And according to the affidavit, they've laid out, you know, a good amount of forensic evidence. So I'm sure they're doing everything they can to try to find Stephen if in fact he is gone.
The last call for questions and comments. We're going to be wrapping up our stream, and we are going to be paying more attention to what's, of course, and we have been paying attention to what's going on in Nashville. This, of course, is just the story that we're talking about today in the state of Florida, and a lot of developments still occurring with this story. So we are doing the balancing act here, of course, paying attention to this massive story in Florida, as well as what's going on in Nashville. This question coming in from Natalie, #KJB, has the surgeon spoken about the incident? Has he denied charges? A really great opportunity to once again remind our audience right there with the person in the center of your screen, innocent until proven guilty. And so the arraignment happening in the 1:30 hour, it is probably done by now. What do we expect to come out of arraignment, Masa, once we do find out exactly what went on in the courtroom?
This is just going to be his first appearance before a judge. They're going to assign him an attorney if he can't afford one. I think according to the affidavit I saw, there's no bond. I don't suspect there's any way that they're going to issue a bond. I suspect he's going to remain behind bars as this case slowly makes its way through our system.
We'll, of course, continue to post updates. And if we get the booking video, if we get the arraignment video, we'll, of course, post it to our website, WFLA.com. Masa, we're going to be wrapping up our live stream. A lot going on in a very busy day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your final thoughts, anything else that you want to add?
Just so sorry this happened to you, Stephen. That's it.
All right. Masa Saidi joining us from New York on her off day. Masa, as we bring it back up here correctly, Masa, safe flight back. We look forward to having you back here in Tampa, but enjoy some of your time off, and I'm sure we'll be chatting off stream.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, everybody, the very latest on this story, you can click on the link in the description on this video. It'll also take you over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app. A lot going on today. The very latest, of course, on our website, on our app. We'll be back with more updates as they come in. Thanks for joining us here on WFLA Now.